So I'm right, and you're right. Spent some time a week ago at the Parliament of the World Religions. Got the t-shirt on now. And the talk today is called The Best Ideas in the World, and these are the nuggets that I came out of the Parliament of World Religions with. And if you change that to I'm all right, and you're all right, then you start getting a little bit into the meaning and the essence of the Parliament of the World Religions, which is not to get us all to be the same religion, but to identify and understand that when people are on a spiritual and religious path and they have their community and they have their practice and they have their intentionality, there's room to find other groups, other people who we have something in common with. We are probably one of the few traditions that is either willing to or actually does light 9 flames of faith for different paths every Sunday. Because what we understand is that there is something good in all of them. I got into conversations with a lot of people, individuals, and a lot of times they would be hearing about New Thought for the first time. And so I got to fine-tune the elevator pitch on what New Thought is. And it's easiest for me to describe New Thought as the greatest hits of all the world religions, or all the world's practices. Because what we want to do is love like Jesus, believe like Moses, pray like Muhammad, and meditate like the Buddha. And when we can do that, that's a really good start into who we want to be and the way that we are able to accept and activate the traditions, the best thing that comes from all the traditions. And it was all about commonality. The stats are that there were 7,000 people at the Parliament total. I think that's a high estimate, but that's okay. There were a lot of people there from a lot of different traditions, and there was a lot going on in the program. And the experience for me divided itself up into personal interactions that I was having and program activities, because when people have an opportunity to speak in front of a group of 7,000 people from different traditions, they like to do an idea dump and get as much out there as possible, which is why it's taken me over a week to kind of even start processing all of the content that I came up with. It was delightful. I got a chance to spend a few days in Chicago with Carolyn. She came down from Milwaukee, and we were at the Parliament together for a couple of days. We were doing the evening meditations from the New Thought prayer room at the Parliament of World Religions, which was just fun. We both got the same t-shirt on today. And being able to connect in community with the people who were there. There were 10 different organizations from New Thought, and we all got exhibit booths next to each other in the exhibit hall, and then took down the drapes that divide them. So it was a very much an open and common area where we were right next to Agape, and Michael Beckwith was hanging around. Got a great picture of me and Carolyn with Michael, which was fun. And the Centers for Spiritual Living on the other side, and Unity was behind us, and it was a really wonderful opportunity to connect with people. And part of it was our own people, and part of it was the other people who were there as well. And the watchword for me came out to be curiosity, because when I have a conversation with somebody and I think I know what they're going to say, then I take away their opportunity to actually say something or to be informed of something new. So one of my favorite techniques was when I got on the elevator at the hotel. We stayed basically at the event hotel, which is still a half a mile away from where the convening was going on. So in the morning, I get in the elevator, and if there was somebody in the elevator who had the Parliament credentials on, I just struck up a conversation with them. And 2 or 3 times it wound up being a wonderful conversation. Once it was a Unity minister, so she's already inside the New Thought family, and we got to chat about what we have in common and the paths that we've been on together. Another time, it was a Baha'i. And so we strolled the entire way talking about Baha'i and how the teaching fits in with her life and the sorts of things that that it's about for her, and some of what I perceive to be some of the contradictions in Baha'i and how she deals with that. And for all of the people who I ran into, when there are contradictions, where things that we hear that the religion doesn't allow you to do this. Like, for example, the Baha'i has a reputation for being unfriendly to LGBTQ. And I said, well, what about that? And she said, yeah, that's true, but it's also completely against promiscuity of any sort. And the first tenet of Baha'i is to honor everyone's human rights. She said, so for me, that supersedes the whole thing. If somebody is gay, then I support their human rights to be what they are and to live their life the way that they do. And is that a loophole in Baha'i? I don't know. Is that what the founders had in mind? I don't know. But it's none of my business. But by having that curiosity, by asking, hey, what's going on with you, I had the opportunity to connect in and learn something and inform myself. The registration system was completely messed up. It was supposed to start working on Sunday afternoon and it didn't start until Monday morning. So I got there early and the line was only an hour to get through registration. And there was a woman who I was in line next to, so I started chatting with her. And every once in a while, some people who I knew would come along in the line. Some of them joined us, and some of them, decided they were going to do that later. And she is an artist, and she had some of her works on display in the gallery there. And her spiritual path is Latter-day Saints. So got to talk a little bit about that, and she's in a place that does not have a lot of people who are following the Book of Mormon, and also is not doing artwork that's particularly supported by her faith tradition. There's a lot of spiritual and religious iconography that she uses in her work that is not particularly well accepted by her group. So again, it was about the balance point between what she's doing, what she's called to, the way that she's sharing her gifts, and also expressing and living and sharing and her own spiritual tradition. Had a great conversation with a pagan. I was at the Anton booth in the exhibit hall, and this woman came up and she wanted to know about New Thought. So I told her, and we had a really great conversation. She's a big fan of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is the founding philosopher of a lot of what New Thought is about. At least that's what we think. The people in the booth across the aisle from us were the Swedenborgians, and he started 150 years before Ralph Waldo Emerson. In fact, Emerson is one of their favorite Swedenborgians. So there's a lot of richness and connection that was going on there. And the conversation with the pagan woman, she knew so much about all sorts of different religions and was framing her own beliefs and understandings and practice in with, again, like the greatest hits of the world's religions. Wonderful opportunities to connect with people. And sometimes in the presentations, they just like to talk. Carolyn and I went to a Muslim prayer session. And from the description, we thought we were going to actually get to do a Muslim prayer practice. And instead, the woman, who's very enthusiastic, very sweet, spent a little over an hour describing Muslim prayer practice and what she does and the way that she came into it. And she expressed that the first time the morning call to prayer is really early, and she decided that she wanted to get started in her faith practice. And the first day, she slept through the call to prayer. And the second day, she didn't want to. And then the second day, she slept through it again. And then she set the intention, okay, if this is the right practice for me, I'm going to wake up on time. And she was up and alert 15 minutes before the call to prayer, and it just worked for her. And now she wouldn't do anything else. She had a really wonderful way of describing it. She says that she gets to polish her heart 5 times a day. And what a wonderful remembrance that sort of thing is available to us. And so the connections with the people who were there were wonderful. The program itself was largely about a declaration of a global ethic. And the t-shirt says, and I'll hold this up for you, Call to Conscience, Defending Freedom and Human Rights, which is a lovely idea, except in New Thought, if we're defending human rights, freedom and human rights, then we actually have to have somebody to defend it from. And there needs to be a conflict, because as soon as there's no conflict, then we have to stop defending and we can't do what our mission is. So I have a little bit of an objection with the wording on the t-shirt, but I got the t-shirt anyway. And it also is talking about the big deal about the Parliament of the World's Religions, which they've been working on for the last 30 years since the reconvening. It's actually 130 years since the first one. And the one 130 years ago was also in Chicago, and that brought all of the world's religions together for the first time and introduced some of the Eastern teachings to the West. That's where Paramahansa Yogananda got his start in the West. And 100 years after that, they had another one. And they've been working on what they call Towards a Global Ethic. And this is the summary of it. It's 16 pages long. And there's some pretty good stuff in it. It's pretty deep and pretty passionate in a lot of different ways. The 5 themes in the global ethic. The first one is culture, working toward a culture of nonviolence and respect for life. The second is solidarity and a just economic order. The third is tolerance and a life of truthfulness. The fourth is equal rights and partnership between men and women. And the fifth is working toward a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. And it turns out that all of the world's religions have those in common. You can shorthand it: respect for life, economic justice, truth and compassion, women's rights, and care for the earth. And there's pages and pages and pages. These people are really good at talking. I mean, a lot of them are ministers, and they're really good at using a lot of words anyway. We get a bunch of them together, and then there were some politicians. And we get the political leaders. The mayor of Chicago was there. Raphael Warnock made an appearance by remote video. Jesse Jackson received an award. There's lots and lots of words that can be used. And when you can distill them back down to the 5 that are on the back of this t-shirt, then it says something about the claim that we're making and who we want to be. A lot of it was about human rights and about sustainability. And the sustainability stuff is something that I am passionate about, and I went to a panel that had some amazingly well-informed and passionate leaders. One of them was talking about basically that water is life and how important water is. And I did not realize that it takes 16 pounds of grain to make a pound of meat. And it takes a similar amount more water to make a pound of meat than it does to make a pound of grain. And the question came up: do I choose to buy a pound of beef for my family and risk the possibility of 15 families going hungry? Now, in essence, it's a distribution problem rather than an actual supply problem, but that's there. There's some other problems with the meat industry and the agriculture business as well. It's tremendously wasteful. So did I go vegan or vegetarian while I was at the Parliament of World Religions? Not entirely, although I'm angling that way a little bit more than I had been. On that particular panel, there was a rabbi who's a world leader, and he has spent a lot of time in a lot of slaughterhouses. And he says it has to be hidden from the public what goes on there, because there's no way that the agricultural industry can work without being cruel. And it's something else to think about. The land that gets used. It takes 75 times as much land to make a pound of beef than it does to make a pound of tofu. I'm not a huge fan of tofu, but I see the point. There were some other people who were on that particular panel. One of them happened to be the leader of the Sikh community. I am a huge fan of the Sikhs. The Sikhs were there, and they have a thing called Langar. And this guy was actually the head of the group that does that. Langar is a community kitchen, and what they'll do is they'll set up a Langar kitchen, and they will prepare a meal, and they will serve everybody who shows up. From the most impoverished people to the mayor of the town, everybody gets treated exactly the same way. They set up tents outside the McCormick place, and the numbers that they did were 2,000 to 3,000 people a day. They did this every day for the entire parliament. And the process is, you go to their tent, You take off your shoes. They put a head covering on you for you. You wash your hands, and then get escorted in, and you're seated, and you don't get your own food. You don't get your own anything. You sit down and you're served. They come through with basmati rice and curry and gulab jamun and just wonderful food that is cooked well and cooked with love. And through all of it, they were thanking us. They were thanking us for coming to their lunch. Can you imagine 3,000 guests for lunch every day and you're thanking them? And I went on Friday and they were still grateful. They were still thankful. They were still wonderful. And what a wonderful way of demonstrating your faith and who you are in the world. It was over the top as far as I was concerned. And the leader of the organization was talking about some of the issues that they were dealing with and some of what they're bringing to the world and why they're vegetarian and vegan. The other wonderful quote that came from that particular panel was from Michael Bernard Beckwith, and he was talking about how we share our beliefs. And he pointed out that a believer who hasn't embodied their belief becomes a radical trying to get others to accept their beliefs. So what he's encouraging us to do is embody our beliefs. If we believe that the planet needs something, then we need to be what the planet needs so we can take that in the right direction. If we are defending human rights, if we're defending LGBTQ rights, we have to embody that. We can't just talk about it and try and convince other people to do that. And I thought he was particularly on target with that one. And I went to a bunch of sessions on LGBTQ rights, which was fascinating. One of my favorite ones was on queer spirituality, which first of all was fun because they were having fun with it, and they were brash and out there, and it was great. And the guy who was facilitating said that queer people, by being their authentic self, are an activist. And he pointed out some particular Bible stories, Old Testament and New Testament, and said one of them is the story of Jonathan and David in the Old Testament. He says that's the gayest story ever. And he encouraged us to read Scripture and read anything that's been around for a while and look at it with different eyes. Look at it with curiosity to see if it necessarily means what people have told us that it means. People think that the prayer that Christians should do over and over and over again is the Lord's Prayer, because everybody says it all the time. And right before he did the Lord's Prayer, Jesus said, "Do not pray by vain repetition." So maybe don't say that prayer. Maybe learn kind of to pray the way he said that we should learn to pray. Maybe it means something different than we thought it means. This guy also pointed out that Jesus hung out with 12 guys and hookers. So maybe there's something going on there. That's not exactly what has been promoted by his group ever since. And it's about being present. It's about being curious. It's about being engaged and involved. I'm right, and you're right. And together we're all right. Somebody pointed out that the words listen, silent, and enlist are all anagrams. So by being quiet, by being open, by being willing to engage in our commonality, maybe there's a possibility that something new is possible. There's a really powerful talk that was done one of those mornings by Marianne Williamson, who has who has some bruises from having been in the political world for a while and talked about those. And one of the key points that she made is that religion is radical. So when we're owning our religion, our spiritual path, the truth of who we are, if we're sharing ourselves and know that I'm all right, and are open with curiosity to finding out what's all right about somebody else, and be able to listen to them, there's a brand new possibility. As I was talking to the Baha'i, as we were walking into the convention hall together, we talked about having this conversation. And she said, yeah, I've had this conversation with a bunch of people, because a lot of people don't know about Baha'i, and a lot of people don't know about New Thought either. And she says they tend to fall into two categories for her. One is the people who are really interested, who are curious, who want to understand more and are asking really pointed questions. And the others are the ones who have their own faith and they want to convert you. They wait for you to take a breath so that they can say what their point of view is. And I think that's what Michael Beckwith was saying. Once we've embodied who we are, when I'm comfortable with who I am, then you can be whoever it is that you're going to be. And I can have my understanding about how it's going to work or how it might work for you. I had the experience on my podcast. My podcasting partner 2 years ago was proudly telling me that she's a card-carrying control freak. And I was able to meet her where she was and go, oh, okay, that's great. Let me know how that's going for you. Knowing full well that as she dives into this new thought teaching, she's going to have to give that up because we don't have any control. We have the illusion of control. And over the course of the last 2 years, partway through, she turned in her control freak card. For her Christmas present was for me to send her a picture of one that I made up with "canceled" written across it. But she didn't cancel her control freak card because I told her she had to. And I didn't have a judgment about her and thinking that having a control freak card was a good thing. Because I had a control freak card in my life and turned it in. Because there's a bunch of stuff that I used to do that I can't do anymore because as I've been open and grown into different things, new possibilities unfold. And the same thing is true for everybody. The same thing is true for each of us. You do not have to go to the Parliament of the World Religions and be overwhelmed by 7,000 of your best friends. You can do it a little bit at a time. Be open. Be curious. Know that you're right, and so is everybody. And see what that means. See what that means. See how love is unfolding as that. Because you deserve it. We all deserve it. And so it is.
Say thank you, thank you, thank you, 'cause I'm so grateful, oh grateful, I'm so grateful. So I wanna say thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit, thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit, thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit, thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. wanna say thank you. So I'm so grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. I wanna say thank you. Just thank you. I wanna say thank you. Thank you. Cause I'm so grateful. Yeah. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I wanna just say thank you now. Just thank you now. 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 Each and every day I'm gonna say thank you. Thank you.